69th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. Ukraine agrees to allow a Russian aid convoy into eastern Ukraine after Ukrainian officials examine the cargo and Red Cross personnel accompany it. The head of Médecins Sans Frontières warns it will take another 6 months to bring the Ebola outbreak under control. Hello and welcome to CCTV News. I'm Neela Yuni in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. With Friday being the 69th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II, friendly delegations from Japan and South Korea have gathered at the Memorial Hall of the victims of the Nanjing massacre by Japanese invader, together with Chinese visitors. Nanjing was the setting of a massacre in a 6-week period starting December 1937. Some 300,000 Chinese civilians and unarmed soldiers were murdered by Japanese soldiers during this time. During the gatherings on Friday, visitors from the three countries made a pledge together to learn lessons from history and to go against war and violence. Meanwhile, the Museum of the War of Resistance Against Japanese Aggression in Beijing has held a reception ceremony that showcases some 150 historic items from the war. Items include the recording of the radio broadcast in which Japanese Emperor Hirohito read the imperial rescript on the termination of the war. An invitation to General Go Jitang to attend Japan's surrender ceremony in Nanjing was also displayed in the museum. Japanese Emperor Akihito and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe have attended a ceremony commemorating the end of World War II at a Tokyo hall. In his speech, Abe paid condolences to those killed in the war and said Japan would make contributions to lasting world peace. However, he did not mention anything of Japan's aggression on its Asian neighbors during the war. He also failed to make a pledge that Japan would never again go to war. These omissions have been a constant at these annual ceremonies since 1994. In July, Abe's cabinet reinterpreted the country's war-renouncing constitution to allow the self-defense forces to exercise the right to collective self-defense. And as we mentioned, today marks the 69th anniversary of the surrender of Japanese forces during World War II. To mark the occasion, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has made an offering at the war-linked Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo. Around 80 Japanese lawmakers have also visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors 2.5 million Japanese who were killed while serving in the Japanese military, including 14 convicted Class A war criminals from World War II. The visits have raised strong condemnation from China. China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said the Yasukuni Shrine is a spiritual vehicle and a symbol of the war of aggression. She added that only when Japan honestly faces up to and deeply reflects on its past history of aggression and truly makes a clean break with militarism can China-Japan relations achieve sound and stable development. Hua said China solemnly urges Japan to deal with relevant issues in a responsible manner and win back its trust of its Asian neighbors and the international community with concrete actions. And back in February this year, China announced that September the 3rd had been designated as Victory Day in the war against Japanese aggression, and that December the 13th would be a national memorial day for victims of the 1937 Nanjing massacre. The Chinese government has planned several commemorative activities for September the 3rd. Meanwhile, South Korean President Park Geun-hye on Friday also urged Japan to face up to history. She made the remarks during her Liberation Day speech to celebrate the 69th anniversary of the peninsula's liberation from Japanese colonial rule.
Japanese politicians are now pulling the people of the two countries apart. They've brought pain to them. One cannot just cover up or deny historical truth. Future generations will search and find what is inevitably true because the witnesses of history are still with us.
Also on Friday, South Korea's Foreign Ministry condemned Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for sending an offering to the infamous Yasukuni Shrine. Several members of Abe's cabinet visited the shrine on Friday. The South Korean Foreign Ministry said that Japanese politicians' visits to the shrine reflects the country's attempts to whitewash its wartime aggression. Thousands of people gathered in the capital Seoul, protesting against the revival of Japan's militarism. Opposition parties in Japan have called for Japanese to self-reflect on the 69th anniversary of the country's surrender. This is in stark contrast to the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's stance to speed up legislation to allow Japan's forces to be deployed overseas. Banri Kaeda, president of the Democratic Party of Japan, says his party will adhere to an ideal that does not threaten other countries. He also said Japan should take responsibility for the peace and stability of the Asia-Pacific region. Yorihisa Matsuno, a Japanese politician from the Japan Restoration Association and a member of the House of Representatives in the Diet, said self-reflection lays the foundation of Japan's prosperity, and that Japan had inflicted losses and misery on Asian countries. Meanwhile, your party's Secretary General Keiichiro Asao said Japan should wage no war against others in the future and work towards world peace and stability. Japan's Liberal Democratic Party since 2012 has called for lifting the ban on the right to collective self-defense. It also passed a cabinet resolution in July to drop a ban that has kept Japan's military from fighting overseas since World War II. And much more ahead here on CCTV News, still to come. Ukraine agrees to allow a Russian aid convoy into eastern Ukraine after Ukrainian officials examined the cargo and Red Cross personnel accompanying it.